Yo, yo, yo. Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to VUX World. I'm your host, as always, Kane Sims. And today we're going to have an excellent conversation with Stefan Bijkerk, who is the data analyst and conversational AI specialist at Rabobank. That's one of the Netherlands' leading banks. We're going to be talking about use cases, conversation, design, best practice, learnings, value, and all of that kind of stuff to help you create your AI assistants in the best way possible. Before we do kick off, a quick shout out to our presenting sponsor, Deepgram. Deepgram has, if you don't know already, industry-leading speech recognition. If you are creating voice assistants for your call center and voice bots and the like, then you should definitely check out Deepgram. You can retrain Deepgram's models based on your customers' dialect, jargon, terminology, your products and services, and those kind of things, which means that you can get the speech recognition super accurate, which means you're feeding your NLU accurate data and giving it the best chance of understanding what people say. It's one of the most underrated parts of the whole pipeline, I think, speech recognition. So do check out deepgram.com/VUX World if you are interested in learning more. And very briefly, next Thursday, I'll be running an entirely free workshop with Cognigy, one of Gartner's Magic Quadrant leaders in conversational AI platforms. And we'll be covering customer experience and CX maturity. So bring yourself, bring your team. It's entirely free. We're going to run through a 2-hour-long, completely free workshop where we'll take you through a few frameworks. We'll help you identify where you sit currently as far as your CX maturity is concerned and some of the things that you can do to up your CX game and deliver better customer experiences for your customers and better business results as well. So go to vux.world/Cognigy to register. That is vux.world/Cognigy, COGNIGY. And that is next Thursday. We're also running one in September as well, so you might want to jump on that one. That's September the 1st. Cool. So without further ado, boys and girls, please welcome Stefan Bijkerk, who is the data analyst and conversational AI expert at Rabobank. Stefan, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
No problem. Thank you for joining us. Whereabouts are you in the Netherlands?
I'm living in Amsterdam. I'm in the
Nice.
west of Amsterdam.
Classic. Amsterdam was the last trip I took before lockdown.
Really?
And lockdown prevented me from going back again sooner. Fantastic city, absolutely love it. Well, thank you for joining us. For those that don't know of yourself or Rabobank, maybe we'll start by introducing yourself, what you do at Rabobank, and then for those that are in the US and other parts of the world, maybe explaining what Rabobank is as well might be a good idea.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me. I'm, as you said, Stefan. I live in Amsterdam, but I grew up in the center of the Netherlands, near Utrecht, and I moved to Amsterdam in 2005 to study sociology. I've been living there ever since. I'm 36 years old, and I've been working at Rabobank for the past 6.5 years. I started out as a customer service agent, and after 3 years, I was asked to join the team that was starting to discover the creation of a chatbot, the first chatbot of Rabobank. I started out there doing an analysis on what the most frequently asked questions from customers were. I was supposed to stay there for 3 months, and I've been doing it for 3.5 years now, and grew into the role of, as you said, data analyst, and familiarized myself with conversational AI, and it turned out to be such a perfect fit for me that I can see myself working in there for the years to come. By Rabobank, it's one of the 3 largest banks within the Netherlands. You have ING, ABN AMRO, and Rabobank. And there's a lot of similarities between these banks, but Rabobank is, I think, unique in its origin. It originated as a farmers initiative, two actually that merged into one farmers bank. And up until this day, it is one of the biggest players worldwide, actually, in food and agriculture financing. We are operating in 36 countries, but our main place of operation is, of course, the Netherlands, where we have 9 million customers, 8 of whom are private customers and 1 million business customers.
Wow.
And we are different in that to this day we are a corporation and we are not listed in the stock market. So we don't have stakeholders, but members actually, and anyone with an account can become a member as well. And those two facts, so the farmer's background and the cooperation structure, also translate into the bank's mission, which is growing a better world together. A bit ambitious, but I think it's nice to have big ambitions.
Nice, definitely,
Yeah,
yeah. So you began your journey into the conversational AI kind of space, coming in as a subject matter expert. Would that be fair to
yeah,
say? And then you obviously gained a bit of experience, and took on the role full time, then working on conversational AI assistants. But the origins was what you were brought into the project team as a subject matter expert. Is that right?
yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, yeah. I was basically doing analysis on what were the most frequently asked categories of questions. So obviously for a bank, that's things like debit card, or credit card. That analysis was done by simple counting at the customer service, but also analyzing visits of our web pages, and that really introduced me into data analysis as well. And I've been trying to develop both skills over the last few years, and I think I'm involved in almost every part of the creation of our conversational solutions in some way or another. And I think you can best now maybe see me as a consultant.
Right. Interesting. That's interesting. How would you so typically you mentioned you're involved in every part. What if you were to explain we'll get into some of the use cases in that in a moment, but if you were to explain the process that Rabobank follow,
Mhm.
how do you fit into that process?
It starts basically with collecting customer questions, I would say, and trying to formulate answers to those questions, create the dialogues. And I've done a lot of the AI training, so in the sense of gathering the training phrases and training and optimizing the model. But from my background experience at the customer service, I also check content still to this day on a regular basis. I provide feedback to the content designers. I am involved in testing, both for the development part as for like IT part, but also for the testing of the dialogues. I create dashboarding to see our performance and try to think of ways of how to optimize our performance. And that is also by doing research and learning more about the craft.
Nice. And where did it start for Rabobank then? The first project that you were brought into, was that one of those kind of FAQ based interactions? Like, I wonder if you can describe what that first project was.
Yeah, we started out on a trial department called the Digital Hub, and that was a trial department for working agile Scrum, which the bank at that point was not doing. And Within that context, there was also the possibility to try out new concepts that would work well in such an environment. That's when the project of the first chatbot was created. That was mid 2018, I think. And it started out very small with four people, one product owner, an external consultant, one content designer, and one subject matter expert. Actually, a colleague of mine, Jenner, started out, and I replaced him in January 2019. And we really started out by doing a very thorough market investigation of what tooling would best fit, but also did a lot of research on what were the best practices at that point and what were other companies doing that were had already started. One of the main findings of that analysis at that point was that we didn't want to go live with something too shabby because first impression can be very important. And especially within the field of chatbots, which isn't too popular in the first place with a lot of customers. Yeah, we didn't feel comfortable going live with only a few dialogues. So we started out with 5 categories of questions. Like I said, for instance, debit card, credit card, and then filtering down on what are the most frequently asked questions and creating the dialogues for that. So it actually took a pretty long time before we went live as well. I think in my memory, it was 2018 uh, that we started, and 2020 that we first went live.
Right. Interesting. So it took quite a long time
Yeah.
to get the thing live. What was it? What was it like when it went live in terms of, you said you didn't want it to be a couple of, a couple of question and answers and that was it. So you've put
Mhm.
a lot of time and effort into doing that research. What did you end up going live with? Was it all of these categories fully populated with X number of FAQ? I wonder if you can describe what it was that actually went live in the end.
We really went live with fully formed dialogues, so that was the big advantage of those that long period of preparation. It was really conversational, not FAQ. So it was really going back and forth. We had training from the Conversation Design Institute in the Netherlands. Back then, it was called Robocopy, and they're quite well known in the Netherlands, and they provide all sorts of trainings and consulting services within Conversational. We went live small scale on the anonymous website on a few pages, to find out what customers would think.
Nice. Um, Interesting. And so how did you get the um, data in order to train those models during that 2-year period when you're working behind the scenes in
Mhm.
stealth?
We already had a chat application, and we had pulled a month of uh, live log from that chat application, and we just searched through the logs for the 5 main categories that we had defined, and then just labeled all these hundreds of questions. We had a rule of thumb that a question within those categories had to be asked at least 20 times in order for it to be eligible for creating a dialogue.
Interesting.
So we had
Uh,
actual customer data, real customer questions.
Yeah, yeah. The 20 times rule is quite an interesting one to try and focus on the ones that you know are going to be at least probably long tail compared to the volume you have on other queries, but at least
Yeah.
sufficient enough. Because there's nothing worse than a chatbot that says, "I don't know what you're saying" to
Yeah.
everybody, but every chatbot has to say that to some
Hmm.
people because it's not realistic to have it working for absolutely everybody all the time. Um, but it's interesting where you got that number from. Where did you get that 20 number from? Or was it kind of like a finger in the
Very.
air? That seems about right.
Um, Pretty much all that we had decided on was based on some form of analysis. So I'm pretty sure we have read a blog somewhere, or I think, yeah, we looked into how do these NLU models work, and also we first used Nuance Nina, and we had a consultancy colleagues over there that briefed us on minimum requirements.
Right. So you were basically looking for the minimum requirements of training data per intent.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and yeah, as you said, what we really didn't want was for one of the most um, straightforward questions, like how can I replace my debit card, for it to fail. That
Yeah.
we really wanted to prevent.
Yeah, yeah, good. It's interesting that basing it on how much training data you need rather than how much volume is coming from the customer. I suppose it's kind of the same thing. Um, but yeah, basing it on how much training data you need is quite an interesting one. Um, so when you're going through that process of taking it live in 2020, you did a kind of like soft launch, analyzed it. Had you done any other testing before that, like any usability testing, or more kind of like
Yep.
when you go live, that's more kind of like it's like quantitative testing, isn't it? Which is that let's look at the numbers, let's improve the models, but it's also important to have the qualitative testing, which is this thing a decent experience? Do people like it? Like, is it actually, can people get to one end of the conversation to another? Did you do any of that kind of research and testing before?
Yep. Yeah, within those 2 years, we have a UX department at Rabobank. It has a UX lab also, and colleagues from UX designers um, really helped us create also our custom front end that we use for the chat. They did a field research and asked customers as well as colleagues what they thought of the initial designs and the entire concept of a chatbot.
Nice. Was there any surprises that come out of that? Anything you learned that you thought, wasn't
No,
expecting that?
not really, not really.
No.
No, no, it
Nice.
was pretty expected actually.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah,
I suppose it means you've done a decent enough job of finding a good starting point, and the solution must have been in a half decent shape by that point and stuff like that. I think sometimes when you do that testing, I always like to do it early, especially when I used to do a lot of work on Alexa skills and Google Assistant actions, and in that space, you're creating a brand new type of interaction for a brand new type of platform, brand new type of device, and often it was a brand new type of interaction. Like it might be a conversation that's being created purposefully to get somebody from one side of an insurance quote to another, or helping them plan for retirement, or whatever those things may be. And it was all entirely new to people. Whereas chat, I think mental models, people have begun to build up a mental model of a chatbot. And so it's not like you've got this massive creative endeavor at the beginning, like how do we create something that's marketable? It's more a case of using the data to find problems that you can solve with the solution. And so you're coming at it from a well-grounded foundation, basically. So yeah, shouldn't really get too many surprises.
no, that's exactly right. And yeah, basically we already knew what our customers were using the platform of chat for. And yeah, we also had the urge to help out our customer service. I had personal experience of the work pressure that is involved at the peak hours there. And yeah, we also had the confirmation from customers that if it works properly and it can provide you with the correct answer, then sure, why not use a chatbot?
Nice. So you went live in 2020 after doing a lot of research, a lot of data analysis, a lot of customer testing. You go live with a soft launch. Was that the first time that you'd actually tested the integrity of the language model? I know you'd probably done some testing yourselves, but now it's in the
Mhm.
wild and you've got people actually talking to it. Was that the first time of doing properly testing the language model, or did you do any testing on that beforehand?
We did beforehand because besides the set of trigger phrases, we had a testing set for blind testing. So we used that to see if, yeah, so those were untrained but real customer questions. And we checked, yeah, the performance of the model. So we were already um, yeah, more or less aware of the ability, but of course, you're never fully prepared for actual go live.
Mm. And the actual go live was at a time when everything changed.
Yes, yes, yeah, because before that, we were basically completely unknown within the organization. We had no customers, eye on us, no feedback. So yeah, we had this playground that we could just yeah, do whatever we like, more or less. And then all of a sudden, yeah, you're in the public eye, and yeah, then the optimization starts. People want things from you. There's a lot of opinions, of course. So yeah, that drastically
Mm.
changed.
And then also you have a pandemic that happened
Yeah.
in the in the middle of the year. Did that affect what you were doing? Did that have you change direction, make changes, or did you carry on with what you originally had? And that kind of, I wonder if the pandemic affected your chatbot in any way.
I think indirectly. I think um, that also has to do with the maturity of the product. But I think we have pretty much accepted the existence of chatbots and even embraced it. At least most of us, I think. And I think the pandemic has made it extra clear how vital automation like that actually is. And I think we've moved away from this fear of automation taking jobs to the desperate need for automation to fulfill certain types of jobs.
Absolutely. So you went live in 2020. What was the results? What was your kind of early results? What was the things that you noticed after going live?
Well, the huge range of topics that are asked by customers from a bank, that is one of the first things that really hits you after you go live with only a portion of that fully developed. I think one thing we did to mitigate that nicely is the concept of what we called provisional answers. And we did gather training phrases for those subjects that we didn't create dialogues for, and we offered a direct escalation to an employee. So I think overall our performance was pretty good because we had high recognition on those general provisional answers as well. But of course, you run into all sorts of issues, both technical NLU wise, but also content not being fully fitting the need of customers. It became really focused on getting the feedback rates up, because that of course is the first thing that springs into mind.
And as a data analyst, your role in those days would have been, I imagine, looking at the details of the bot's kind of technical performance
Yeah.
and possibly some of that qualitative stuff as well, like, if the customers are giving any kind of direct feedback to it and stuff like that. So you've got like two levels of measurement, haven't you? You've got like the bot itself and the customer interaction. You want to make sure that the NLU has integrity. You want to make sure that it's accurate and it's performing well. You want to make sure the experience is good, the right use cases are covered, those kind of things. But at the same time, the business isn't doing this for shits and giggles, for want of a better word. It's doing it for a specific reason. So the business might be looking at slightly different things that constitute success. I'm wondering whether you could share a little bit on, first of all, what are you looking for in this instance when you're looking at the first few months of going live with a new chatbot? What are you trying to measure? And then at the same time or after, what is it that the business cares about as far as what's it looking for in terms of the results and stuff like that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we managed to keep expectations at a decent level at the start, and I think we could get away with a lot at the start. So the business focus wasn't so present, but for us it was really recognition rate is super important. Are we recognizing the customer question correctly? And then, of course, the part that you resolve. But we also ask a customer experience question after we provide an answer. Did this answer your question? Yes or no? The higher the percentage no, of course, that would be our starting point to start investigating. And yeah,
What was your response? What was your response rate like on that? Because it's. I mean, we've used that in the past, and I actually think it's a good idea to do that. But it sometimes can be a little bit like the website pop-ups that come up and say, "Can you leave some feedback?" Or, press one if you want to help us with a survey after the call, kind of thing. Like the volumes we found were not always huge. Like, did you find that you had enough volume for it to be useful?
yes, definitely. We have a 50% response rate on that question.
50.
And yeah, but that's also
Wow.
because you need to answer. It's part of the dialogue. So if we provide an answer, and that should be sufficient, then we ask that question. Did this help you? Yes or no? And by answering no, you can escalate to a customer service agent. Um, so but also people that were helped have a high response rate. I think over 25%.
Wow, that's really good. That is really
Yeah.
good. Um, so you mentioned so at the beginning you were coming out of kind of like an innovation team, wasn't it? And you were exploring
Hmm.
this technology, done a
Yeah.
lot of research, built this thing, done some testing, went live. Your team is monitoring it and measuring it. You're looking for the accuracy rate of your intents and all that kind of stuff. You mentioned that the business wasn't as interested because it was an experiment. It's innovation. It's trying something, hoping that it works, but not being penalized if it fails.
Yes.
That was 2020. It's now 2022. What's the
Hmm.
business level of interest like today? I wonder if you can describe how that dynamics might have changed. Because I imagine if you've still got a job, Rabobank and the chatbot is gone from strength to strength. So, and we'll talk about that journey, but just in general, what was the difference in business buy-in from then compared to now?
Yeah, it's huge. We were in a department back then that didn't have a lot of funding capabilities, and last year we moved departments to a department that already had the IVR solution and like the employee tooling of Genesis. That department was called Contact Management, and it has been rebranded to Conversational Banking. So I think that
Wow.
really says a lot about how serious this is being taken. And there's actually a huge demand within the bank to join in. We've created a business virtual agent as well, which was successfully launched on our new platform in April. There's a huge interest. We are onboarding more and more departments of employees that have customer contact on our messaging channel. It's a chat channel, but it's asynchronous messaging. We are really boosting this channel also because we see that it's the preferred channel for a growing group of customers.
Nice. And and so the messaging channel, is that like SMS messaging?
No, it's a chat, but we call it messaging because it is now like WhatsApp. It's
Right.
asynchronous. You can save your chat and reopen it later.
Ah, okay. And is this part of the original chatbot? Is this an iteration to that, or is this something different?
It's an iteration. Yeah, so we've
Nice.
developed it. We have two teams basically: the content team full of content designers and the technical team with developers. And the technical team has always had the chat application, uh, yeah, um, as their feature, as well as the virtual assistants.
Right. Interesting. So 2020 when it launched, it's obviously scaled. The business is a lot more invested to the point where it's rebranded a whole
Mhm.
department to conversational
Yeah.
banking, which I absolutely love that. Um, what in terms of the use cases, we'll get onto maybe the internal use cases and stuff like that in a moment, but in terms of the customer facing chatbot, what was the journey like from 2020 onwards and what have been like, the features, the use cases, the expansion? You've mentioned there asynchronous, like what other things did you find a need for and implement over the 2 years since 2020 to now?
Yeah. I think due to, oh, first of all, our main focus was on creating way more content. We saw the number of questions exceeded the content that we have hugely. That's really optimizing our existing content and creating as much new content as possible. But because we had such a small team for such a long time, I think we had at Go Live 3 or 4 conversation designers that really had to do all that work, and me sort of trying to give some direction through data. So the first 2 years were really focused on that, and besides that, developing our custom front end to be more customer friendly, UX friendly within the enterprise UX standards. Um, and at some point we really reached, I felt, the limits of our tooling back then, which was Nuance Nina, which is a great tool, but it was becoming end of life, and it wasn't really fitting our enterprise architecture, so we couldn't connect to any backend systems. That really um, led to a year of or 2 years actually of transitioning to a new system, to a new platform, which we are currently using now. So that yeah,
Nice.
that
So the limitations that you felt from the original platform, was that a limitation because you didn't have the ability to connect to those systems internally, or was it a limitation of the platform's inability to be able to build custom integrations and things like that?
it was possible, but it was hard. It was yeah, it required a lot of yeah, pro code integrations. So it wasn't really fitting our the way that we were organized. We had too little developers, and also the integration that we would be making weren't really fitting the yeah the architectural standards and security standards. And also yeah it required it had yeah there was little involvement of content designers. So what we were missing was citizen development friendly integrations, yeah, and the ability to make our content more contextual.
Right.
And yeah, besides that, we learned the craft by doing. So we had also created this monster with a giant amount of training phrases, and yeah, it was so hard to untangle that yeah that mess that we had created in some parts. That yeah, we kind of reached yeah the limits of performance within the platform.
Yeah, yeah. That's a common story, that, and it's difficult to be able to forecast that far out when you're kind of just beginning, and when you get your NLU in such a tangle, it becomes absolutely impossible to,
Yeah.
you add one new intent and everything else can collapse. And if you're not
Yes.
monitoring it, you don't know about it. And it's like, what's going on? I'm assuming you're using some kind of tooling to monitor the NLU now to make sure that it's clean and there's good separation between intents and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So we've always used we've looked for tools that were yeah so fully rounded that those would also encompass NLU testing abilities. So currently we are using Power Virtual Agents of Microsoft. And topic overlap tooling is available, but also we run tests. So Nuance Nina used to have automated k-fault testing within the tool itself, which was a really nice feature. And hopefully Microsoft will add that to Power Virtual Agents as well. But we've also yeah we also have a custom testing tool with a blind test set to see if the model is regressing or not.
Mm. So you're using Power Virtual Agents to power the actual front end chatbot,
No, we have a custom front end,
right?
but we
So you've built
use
a custom interface to, so that
yes,
what the customer sees and interacts with is custom, but
yes,
behind that is Power Virtual Agents.
yes, correct.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is very interesting because I've always um I've used the Azure services a bit, and then the bot framework and stuff like that. Um, I've always thought that Power Virtual Agents was a little bit more of a kind of, how would you explain it? Kind of like less sophisticated. However,
Hmm.
it seems as though that's probably a wrong assumption, given that you've been using it for quite some time and it's replaced Nuance Nina, which obviously isn't as nice as Nuance Mix is today, but still, Nuance is Nuance. Typically has good technology. So
Yes.
what is it about Power Virtual Agents, aside from it sounds like better authoring tools to be able to delegate down to, individuals within departments to be able to manage content and stuff like that, better creation, is that mainly what it's giving you, over and above, what is it giving you over and above Nuance?
Yeah. We had three main yeah focal points in looking for new tooling, and that was that it would be citizen development user friendly. So it had to have a good, easy to use low code canvas. And it had to fit our enterprise architecture and have easy integrations so that we can become transactional and contextual. And it had to be future proof. And we did an analysis of several tools and ended up with Power Virtual Agents. It has been around for a few years, and indeed, the bot framework composer, that is their main bot tooling. But they're integrating bot framework composer into Power Virtual Agents, and actually, they've announced the upcoming release of PVA2, which one of its main features is the unified canvas, and that is bringing almost all of the bot framework composer technology to the low-code platform of Power Virtual Agents.
Nice. That will
Yeah.
be revolutionary. Because Compose is decent enough. It's still got some kind of drag and
Mhm.
drop, no like low code bits about it. The framework was always a bit clunky, especially for me. I don't use it because I'm not a developer, but like I've worked on projects with it, and it's very much the same as having a Lex with a Lambda function behind it. It's all very much code kind of heavy.
Yeah.
Composer, I like Composer, but being able to fuse that with virtual agents sounds wicked. I didn't really, I must have missed that announcement.
Yeah, there was the Conversation Design Institute Festival 2 weeks ago, and Microsoft was present to present to show their PVA2 unified canvas, and you could tell from the response from the audience that this is really they've really figured it out. I think
Mm,
really got it, and what's so great about Microsoft is that they have all this other software that you can already see them adding to Power Virtual Agents. So PVA2 will also contain Excel-like formulas, for instance, and it already has commenting on the canvas like Word has,
yeah.
for example.
Yeah, that's wicked. That is wicked.
Yeah.
I missed that. I missed the festival because I was on holiday. I was either entertaining a child in the pool, or I was trying to trying to catch some rays. But that's good. That I'll definitely be checking that out. Um, it sounds like a a process that, to be honest, to go from nuance, you might end up with getting a bit of that nuanced stuff back in your back pocket actually, because
Who
who knows what's
knows?
going to happen with how they do with integrating nuance. But so you've got one solution that's become complex, and a lot of people have hit this point with Dialogflow ES, very similar situations where they've been using it for a while, and they've hit a limit. They've basically clogged up their NLU, and they can't really do much else, and so they're looking for other alternatives. There's no real way of getting around it other than almost firing up a new instance of something, analyzing your current NLU with a tool, Qbox, Botium, Human First. Sounds as though Microsoft got something similar to figure out what the best way of constructing the NLU is from the
Yeah.
ground up, and then you're basically building it all again. And so, is that the process that you followed, or if not, what was the process that you went through to get out of Nuance into Power Virtual Agents?
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think our the first thing that we did was see if we could recreate the same user experience for our customers in Power Virtual Agents. And our custom front end really turned out to be spot on that decision to go for that because we were able, even if we can't recreate the exact same type of content, like for instance buttons, um, then still our front end can translate content that we have created in Power Virtual Agent. So we use Markdown as well in our content, and we've basically took all of our types of dialogues and studied for 2 weeks with a small group of people to recreate those dialogues in PVA, and our aim was to have an exact equal user experience, and we succeeded in that. And after that, the with an implementation partner as well. So that helped. They did a lot of manual labor, especially regarding the NLU, and um, it mostly involved trimming down the giant amount of sentences that we had to just a set that would fit the PVA NLU. And that sometimes meant going from hundreds of phrases to 10.
Interesting, but it can improve because sometimes the hundreds of phrases, there's far too similar to other phrases and other intents, and also a lot of them have stuff that is a bit superfluous, not really relevant to the intent, so to speak.
Yes.
So yeah, I've definitely seen that before, where trimming it down considerably helps.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Basically, migrating is a relief almost because you get to yeah clean up.
Definitely. That's really good. So what about transactional like use cases? I think you alluded to it a little bit. You've got the FAQ stuff and the things that you can answer likely without doing any kind of authentication or any kind of like verification that the person is who they say they are and stuff like that. But to get into some of those real kind of like core business transactions to really start to strip some value out of this assistant from a kind of like operational perspective, you need to be able to do a lot more than answer questions. You need to be able to get into your line of business systems, authenticate the user, make sure that you're actually presenting accurate information and all that kind of stuff. You need to build trust, a whole load of other things going on. Is there any transactional use cases live at the moment, or is that something that you're kind of working on or part of the roadmap?
The latter for chat. So that is really the next step. We are hoping to introduce this quarter. And yeah, luckily we can now make use of things like Power Automate to connect to external APIs. So that is really our focus point, is to get those first transactional dialogues ready. And we have a big advantage that I think 90% of our users are in the logged in environment. So we have the chat inside the desktop version and the Rabo app for both consumer and business customers. So that is already the logged in environment. So
Right.
that's a huge
Nice.
advantage.
That's wicked. Yeah, bypass all of that information, all of that stuff within the chatbot itself saves you a
Yeah.
hell of a headache. Um, Wicked. So you also mentioned that there is an internal use case. You've got internal bots for internal use cases. I wonder if you can shed a bit of light on what that does.
Yeah, we have it's called the cross-channel service desk, and that is mainly focused on IT related questions from employees, and they still use Nuance Dina, and they are actually now in the process of considering PVA maybe. We are hoping to move with the IVR from Nuance to PVA in the next quarter. And yeah, then it would only be the cross-channel services that still uses Nina. Of course, they can continue using that or maybe use Mix. But yeah, we are also going to introduce them to how we use Power Virtual Agents to see if that might be a good fit for them. Power Virtual Agents also have a Teams version. So yeah, I think it could be a great fit for them as well.
Definitely. You mentioned IVR. What's the story with Nuance in the IVR? What are those use cases looking like?
Currently, we have a routing. So we recognize the customer question and we route to the best fitting employee. But we have the ambition to grow to so PVA is an ASR solution, and audio codes is in between that as well, for the speech to text. One of those best fitting employees is hopefully also our voice assistant in the future.
Nice. Um, yeah, we've done workshops with audio codes in the past. The Voice AI Connect is it that you use to connect Microsoft to the call center?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
good. Um, so interesting. You mentioned there IT using Nuance. You mentioned customer service. You mentioned IVR. You mentioned the stuff that you're doing with the chatbot. It sounds as though there's different teams that have ownership over these different bots. Is that how it is? I wonder if you can explain how the kind of
Yeah.
ownership runs in Rabobank.
Yeah, that's correct. So within conversational banking, we have a team that handles the IVR solution. And yeah, that's also the reason that we moved to that department and really brought focus to our conversational solutions. And our ambition was to, because the IVR from Nuance is very separated from the text bot. Yeah, our ambition was to move to one conversational platform, to have reusability of, for example, API connections, and being transactional, creating one solution that can be deployed in 3 different bots. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and you also get the benefit of typically with other digital technologies, and I've seen this happen the same with conversational AI, is that you end up going from either one team, in this case it would be your team, in the kind of innovation situation, exploring new technology, that then proves it can work and then begins to scale it, and then that team is the one that then creates the new instances, whether it's chat into messaging, into IVR, into internal facing use cases, whatever it might be, and that team end up growing naturally into a center of excellence, and then over time
Yes.
devolving responsibility down to business units.
Yep.
um, or it works the other way, which is that you have innovation happening. Innovation maybe might be a strong word in some instances, because we're getting to the point where this technology has proven to work, and so it's more about implementation rather than innovation. But you've got different teams in different departments that have identified a need independently, that then go and create their own solutions, and then the business realizes, well, we're duplicating here and we're duplicating there, we're overspending here. Let's consolidate, create that center of excellence, and then we can revert down back to devolving responsibilities where it's right.
Yes.
Um, it sounds as though you might be in the latter model. Does that fit? Does that sound right?
Yes, yeah, that's exactly right. And we had two. So before we had the content team, the content designers team, and the IT development team that were together in the same department. But we did 2 moves. The content designers moved to the department where a lot of service and digital content was being created, also for employees in customer service agents, and where a lot of knowledge and also duplicate content in that sense was being made. And we moved the technical team to the same department where we had another technical team creating our other conversational solution. So we are indeed, and also within our department, we've done some restructuring where we have a platform team and feature teams that really build. Yeah, so we have yeah, dividing the responsibilities and the work to be as efficient as possible.
Yeah, definitely. And you also get the benefits of having where you've got some degree of synergy between content designers, conversation designers, and things like that. You've got better consistency between the conversations on different channels. I don't know if you went through the process of creating like a personality or persona for the assistant that you're working on, kind of thing. Yeah, and so if the IVR team have worked on it independently, your team have worked on one thing independently, you may potentially have two different tones, two different kind of things. So
Yes.
having that centralized, something centralized in the earlier days means that you can then get some standards in play, and as long as you can educate the rest of the organization on those standards, you can devolve and almost become oversight rather than implementers. And yeah, you can then kind of like have the best of both worlds, basically give independent teams the freedom to create and the freedom to build things for their use cases, whilst keeping the integrity of the whole assistant across all different touch points and use cases.
Yeah, exactly. And that is really our next step for the voice solution as well for the IVR, is that was really focused on the technical aspect of it, recognizing the question and routing, but way less on, yeah, conversation design was not part of that process.
Hmm.
So that's really the next step for us as a department to also introduce that there.
Nice, nice. What are some of the sort of like lessons that you've learned over the years? Like you've come through a route that some others have as well. We had Phil Jordan on from HomeServe in the UK. It's an insurance company that provides home cover. They'll do plumbing and joinery and bits. Anything happens with your house, they'll come and fix it. And he had a very similar journey, working in customer service. Then they were exploring these voice assistant capabilities, and then become into a similar kind of position as yourself. And we also had we've had plenty with Charles Guth, for example. very similar situation where it's interesting where this role is coming from, because it's natural, it should come from customer service and contact centers, but typically and historically it's unique, I think, to find. This is a bit of a generalized statement actually, but historically, when technology hits the contact center, it's usually the agents within the contact center and the management or whatever that use the technology. It's not often the case that those people are actually able to develop, to build out use cases, to have control of their world, so to speak. So this is a really interesting type of advancement in this kind of space, because you've got people who are subject matter experts, know the business inside out, know every nook and cranny about the business more than any individual from any other department that tend to specialize in their division. Um, but it's still unique that those people end up, for example, taking on roles like you do, because you need other skills beyond knowledge of the business in order to be
Yeah.
able to do this effectively. So the first question I was going to ask is what are the things that you learned, but maybe we're edging into here around, with your background in customer experience and the understanding and experience you have of the business, what else do you think that other customer service agents and similar need in order to be able to move into working on conversational AI full time over and above the knowledge of the business?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's very important for companies to start understanding. First of all, it's important for companies to let go of the idea that you need certain educational background or years of experience before you are suitable to perform a certain job. And I think within this field, it has become very apparent that you should be looking at personalities more than experience. And as a customer service agent, you need to have, of course, a thorough understanding of the customer and their context, but also I think a keen eye for IT and technical solutions. You need to be able to transform those conversations that you had with customers on the phone to a way more abstract level. You need to make that, draw them out and see how they technically work. And you need to have the endless desire to grow and learn. I spend every day besides my actual job to learn more about data analysis, about tooling, about developments in the field. So yeah, you do need that drive, I think.
Interesting. What were some of the things then? The question I was going to ask before that. What are some of the things that have been the biggest sort of learning curves for you coming out of that role in customer service, moving into a role which is still quite similar because you're still working on customer service solutions, but now you've got technology, you've got a lot of different stakeholders, a lot of different skills that you're needing to develop to be able to do this. Like, what were some of the learning curves that you went through personally when from moving from that role to this one and beyond?
I think it's what you mentioned before, from being a user of technology to help form it and transform it. That really takes a completely different mindset. And I think I've learned a lot also by listening and looking at developers create solutions and testing them. Really learned how you can make a change in the way that you are servicing your customers with the technique that you have, and you learn the vocabulary of how to yeah uh, um, yeah make others join in what you envision should change.
Hmm. Hmm. If you could, what about the team then? Actually, what are some of the biggest learning curves you think the team went through from 2018 to now?
Um, we've become way more professional in our way of working. That is really the main thing. It's and one of the main things that we learned was documentation is everything. Um, Tooling can change, people change. The overturn in people is huge in this industry. It's very hard to find new people, and there's a huge learning curve before you really grasp what this yeah trade is all about. Um, and the more you document and explain processes, the easier it becomes to be agile in that as well, and to take all these changes that continuously come in your path, yeah, in the most efficient manner.
Nice, nice. That is wicked. Um, cool. There was one final question I was going to ask, but it's left my head now. Let me see if I've measured it, if I got it down. There was one final question, but it seems to have slipped out of my head. I'll come back to it if it pops into my head. So what's the future looking like for Rabobank then? What do you see? What do you think? Oh no, that was it. I've got it. I've got the question back now. What is it that you would do differently if you were to go through this again? What are some of the things that you would do differently?
Definitely the AI training part. Um, and yeah, I think we overlooked the importance of getting a proper NLU model. We really did. And yeah, that resulted in this monster, this huge entanglement of topics, and yeah, really familiarize yourself with best practices. Keep continuously testing on what is the effect if you add new topics. That I would definitely do different. And also, we contributed to well, we're adding training phrases with the entire team. Also, people that never had any real training. And yeah, that was a huge mistake.
Interesting. Nice. Well, Stefan, this has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll put your LinkedIn details and stuff into the show notes if anybody wants to check it out. I'm assuming they'd need to be logged into Rabobank in order to actually see the goodies, so to speak. And not everybody might have an account, but it's been definitely appreciative of your time for joining us and sharing your insights. It's been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure. And you can, in fact, check out our chatbot on our main webpage, rabobank.nl.
Cool. Let's do that then. Let me just take a note of that. Rabobank.nl.
It's on most of our pages
Cool.
in the
I'll put the
doormat.
link there then.
Yeah, on the bottom of the page.
Perfect. I'll put it there then. That sounds good. Wicked. Stefan, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And boys and girls, don't forget, register to. I didn't realize I've had the ticker on the screen the whole time there. Please do register to our free CX Maturity Workshop. It's run by Cognigy. It's facilitated by yours truly, vux.world/Cognigy. If you want to register for a place, it's going to be 2 hours long. You're going to learn a hell of a lot about where you are in your current stage of maturity as far as customer experience creation is concerned. And we're going to go through a bunch of exercises that will help you level up. You'll be working with other people in similar positions, and it's going to be absolutely amazing. And it is entirely free, which is mind blowing. So vux.world/Cognigy if you want to learn more about that. And until next time, next week, same bat time, same bat channel, where we'll be speaking with Orlando. We're speaking with who? We're speaking with Orlando Gadea, who is the VP of Customer Experience at Black& Decker, and Braden Ream, a friend of the show, long-time friend of the show from Voice Flow. We'll be talking about conversation design maturity on Wednesday, and then Thursday, 21st, is going to be the workshop on CX maturity. So thank you for tuning in, and thank you, Stefan, again, and we'll see you all very, very